Hi everyone, thanks for choosing to listen to my talk today on taking the taboo out of leadership. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Lucy Megginson and my company is Mojo Talent. I coach and consult business owners, individuals and teams and assist with leadership development and creating positive and productive workflow and communications in teams and companies. I run the IGEA mentoring program and I work with a number of businesses within the gaming industry in Australia, as well as other small to medium businesses and multinationals in different industries. So let's get started. My intentions for this talk today is to give you an understanding of the fundamental mindset differences between leadership and management, and to offer objective and actionable insights to begin or build on your leadership journey. And I'd like to hope that I offer something to everybody who is participating in this talk, whatever stage of your career that you're at. And to start with, I want to highlight the core learnings about leadership from my personal experience and those that are continuously highlighted to me in the work that I do. When I walk into a business, I actually don't need to know what it is they do. Leadership, communication, and workflow are key and relevant to all businesses, regardless of the industry or the end product. And leadership is first and foremost a mindset required prior to implementing anything. Therefore, through this talk and all of the other presentations that you sit in on the leadership set, I'd ask you to watch and be curious of your internal dialogue, such as, this isn't relevant to the way we work, or they don't understand our business, etc. A leadership mindset is about being open, curious, and adaptable to new and different concepts, which ultimately could transform your business, its culture, and productivity and results. So for the purposes of this presentation, the experiences that I can share from my own learnings and exposure to so many different businesses, their approaches to leadership, their mindsets, and their stumbling blocks can offer you some insights as to how you can tailor and build on your leadership within your businesses and careers. So I just want to highlight that leadership as a business concept is universal. It isn't business or industry specific. However, the difference being that the way you implement it will be unique to your business, but you're still working towards the same concept. And the reason that embarking on leadership can be a little bit daunting is because the key foundations for it can sometimes be seemingly obtuse. So I quickly want to give you a bit of a background and reference to my experience of leadership versus management, which led me to become the consultant and coach that I am today. And I hope that it will really give you some highlights of core leadership insights. I just want to preface that I don't tell anybody my story. My job is about finding out about other people. It's not about me telling my story. So this feels really alien to me. And actually, it was really challenging to write. So I'll take you back 20 years ago to 2001 when I first embarked on my backpacking travels to Australia. I spent an amazing 18 months traveling through Australia and Southeast Asia, and I got an absolute passion for traveling. I got back to my hometown in the UK, a very small town in the southwest of the UK, and I was miserable. I sat and cried into my wine on Christmas Eve thinking, how did I end up back here? What am I going to do with my life? And I knew that I really wanted to travel again, but I also knew that I had to start getting serious about career and hopefully building something that would allow me to travel in the future. It wasn't just about escaping anymore. So having learned a lot about the traveling industry whilst I was away, because I worked in it, I was managing backpacker hostels and all sorts, I'd learned an awful lot about the industry, and I found this niche that I thought was such a good avenue to pursue that would enable me to build a really substantial business, but it would enable me to travel as well. And I came up with an idea and I couldn't get it out of my mind, but also I didn't think that I could do it on my own. That business actually ended up being the first biggest inbound backpacking travel company to Australia back in the day. So I had this idea and I really didn't think that I could start it on my own. So I actually reached out to an ex-colleague of mine who I worked in the travel industry with in Australia, and he was traveling around Scotland at the time. So I went and stayed with him for Hogmanay up in Edinburgh. And whilst we were out enjoying the festivities, drinking wine, eating haggis, as you do, I told him my idea and that I couldn't get it out of my head. And I asked him what he thought. And he was so inspired. He really thought it was a great idea and wanted to come on board. So the next thing I knew, we were building websites, talking to suppliers and getting ready for launch. We moved to London together for 6 months to really work on the business, starting the business together. And then he eventually flew back to the Australian end so that I could manage it from this end and he could manage the other side of it. At this point, he was incredible. Starting the business, getting everything together, he was amazing. And I was definitely right. I couldn't have done it without him. But we launched and I was managing the UK end, he was managing the Australian end. When it came to staff, again, I was responsible initially for the UK end and he was responsible for the Australian end. The plan for me, however, personally, was to eventually be based in Australia. That was the whole passion behind me wanting to set up a business where I can enable other people to travel, young people to travel, but also so that I could live the life that I wanted to. So it was a real personal passion behind it as much as it was a business goal for me. So we launched and we expanded. And as we expanded, we needed to take on more staff at each end. This is the point at which our management and leadership styles couldn't have been more extreme. I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. However, I knew that in order to reach my personal goals, that I had to hire, train and nurture employees to run the UK company in my absence. I had to empower them to want to treat the business as if it were their own. And to me, hiring and managing staff was about finding people who would thrive from you treating them as an equal, building a two-way street of them being able to openly express anything to me that I might need to know, and being upfront and honest with them about what was going on in the business and what my plans were personally, and trusting that they would achieve beyond expectations as well as not leave me in the shit. And I also knew that I had to give them the right platform, guidance, processes and tools to do their jobs effectively. To me, it was bigger than just handing over a job to someone and expecting them to do it as well as you do it just because they're getting paid for it and expecting them to be grateful for it. However, for my business partner, business was about managing with an iron fist and the need for control. He genuinely thought that the best way to get people to improve was to continuously point out what they were doing wrong and where they could go do better. He needed to be in control and involved in every single part of the day-to-day running of the business. And the expectation was that the people in Australia were having a great time. They were showing backpackers around Sydney. They were selling them their onward travel. I mean, there was some boring stuff they had to do as well, but the expectation was they had a great job and that they should be naturally grateful for the opportunity, regardless of the way they were treated. Everything from a management or leadership perspective in Australia was about highlighting incompetence and following instruction down to the T. Individual and team meetings were about focused on what wasn't right and what needed improvement. And even after our biggest days of sales, and our teams, our individuals and our teams used to smash it, he would bring them together the next day and focus on what wasn't done the day before. He genuinely thought that the way to get people to improve was by pointing out what they could do better, what they missed or what they got wrong. This also, once we started to get bigger, was transferred over to me. But what was happening at the same time? In the UK, sales were ever increasing and customers were happy. In Australia, sales were ever increasing also. And I want to really highlight that to you, that a business with bad leadership can still be seemingly successful to a certain point. And I guess that's the part that's highlighted, is to a certain point. My business partner, however, was creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. He constantly moaned that he couldn't get out of the day-to-day, but he was the one creating it. The tone with the Australian staff was so low and recruitment was constant. Staff would leave and cause problems by talking negatively in the industry about their experience. We were getting a bad name. And this was not how I set out to do business. This was far from the core values that I had about building a brilliant business, not only for our customers, but for our teams as well. 2 of our best staff actually left at the Australian end and started a copycat business as they saw there was an opportunity, and they had zero respect or loyalty to us. They literally wanted to give us a massive fuck you. My passion was also turning into an utter burning platform, and I felt I needed to jump off. The business just wasn't aligning with my core values and I was trying to instill, and direction was beginning to slow down. Big and important decisions were being made in a rush without any clear direction because the day-to-day and the negativity was taking up so much time. So 10 years in, I mean, obviously there's an awful lot more to that story, and this isn't a self-therapy session, but 10 years in, I made the hardest decision of my life and I decided to leave the business. The business I thought of, the business I'd worked so hard for. And you know what? It survived. I think we're all aware that businesses can still run and survive or seemingly succeed with a lack of leadership. However, how much are they getting left behind from where they could be? And at what point will the wheels begin to fall off? With regards to my business, yeah, when I left it survived, but the competitor, the 2 amazing staff that left and started their own business, they were leaps and bounds ahead in the end. They got investment and they became a huge threat. Our company started getting sued. The company I'd left started getting sued. Disgruntled staff started to sue, and customers did as well. And accidents actually started to happen on trips. I mean, this is the biggest nightmare I could have ever thought of. But my ex-business partner had to eventually take a step back and realise that if something didn't change, this business would continue to unravel. He had to give something up. This need for transformation, however, was driven from a place of fear and being pushed into it rather than a core passion. I know that this is a really extreme example, but that's almost also why I used it. And for me, it's true. It's a true example. So obviously hindsight for anybody is a beautiful thing. And hopefully the reason you're engaging in this talk today is because you want to embrace leadership in some way, shape or form. We were actually so young and green that we didn't know any better at the time. And I can't obviously put everything that happened down to his lack of leadership. But in the 10 years since leaving the business and pursuing my passion for leadership, I can tell you that a lack of leadership eventually saw big things happen that could have been avoided. I also want to reiterate that I also could not have started the business without him. There were certain areas that he was amazing at, but I was shit at. It was when the leadership part that became essential that things started to fall apart. So I want to give you the opportunity today to have foresight for your careers and your businesses moving forward. So when you watch this next clip, even if you aren't the owner of a business, if you're new in your career or middle management or wherever you sit, I want you to think about what drives you.
So let's talk about the fire metaphor. So the first question I asked these 7 CEOs is why? Why do you actually want to undertake this transformation journey? Initially, they said things like, I can see big storm clouds on the horizon, or our financial trajectory is poor, or our competitors are more aggressive, our customers are squeezing us, our staff engagement is at an all-time low. Over time, they began to talk about more personal reasons for beginning their journey. Things like one CEO said, my reputation is on the line. I'm afraid I will look really stupid if I can't build a company of substance. Another said, I'm physically exhausted. I can't keep going like this. And another still said, every day I try a different approach, but nothing seems to work. I'm starting to feel like an imposter. So it struck me that all these responses centered around a fear-based motivation for change, or what is often termed a burning platform. Now, this metaphor of a burning platform has been around for a couple of decades, and it comes from a story about a man who is working on an oil platform out in the North Sea. So this guy is awoken one night by a large explosion. He runs up on deck and sees that the platform he is on is actually on fire. So he has a choice. Does he stay on the platform and burn to death, or does he jump 150 feet into freezing cold water and hope that he survives? He makes the decision to jump, somehow manages to survive the impact, and is eventually picked up by a rescue boat just before he freezes to death. When asked why he jumped, he replies, "Better probable death than certain death." So in a business context, this implies that fear and extreme urgency are not only necessary but desirable motivators for change. In other words, in order to transform, we all need to run around with our arse on fire. Now, as it turns out, in the land of burning platforms, there are far too many pyromaniacs. What I actually found was that while some urgency helped motivate the CEOs to begin their journey, a fear-driven motivation was not what sustained them over time. What they all spoke passionately about was a burning ambition, a very personal fire that burned within. They spoke about things like fulfilling their leadership potential and redefining their definition of success to include balance, and a deeply held desire to live a big and authentic life. This personal burning ambition then transcended into a burning ambition for their organisations as well. One CEO not only wanted to transform the culture of his company in Australia, but to effect positive change in the corporate parent company globally. This resulted in him making decisions locally, knowing that he was placing himself in the firing line. Another CEO's ambition for a big and authentic life encouraged him to connect the creative energy of his advertising agency to worthy social causes. This ultimately manifested itself in one of the largest social movements any of us have seen in recent years, that of Earth Hour. So what I've learned through all of this is three things. The first is that to sustain a transformation journey, shifting from a burning platform to a burning ambition is absolutely critical. Why? Because this shift allows leaders to be calmer, more purposeful, and more responsive to the inevitable challenges that they're going to face. Secondly, it's also vital for a leader to not only articulate the organisational reasons for change, but to delve deeper and establish very compelling personal motivations for change. Finally, the fire, or the big why, is actually a crucial part of how leaders transform. As Nietzsche said, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. And this is why I place the fire at the centre of our 7 metaphors, because if the fire goes out, all other factors are redundant.
So this links back to why I told you my story rather than somebody else's story from my consultancy experience. Notice that without really knowing it at the time, my need to create leadership over management in my business came from a burning personal passion to build a successful and sustainable business whilst I was pursuing my own passion of travel and creating my own freedom. My ex-business partner's need to create transformation came totally from a burning platform, and the learning curve was steep. So the key takeaways that I want you to take from that little clip, and I hope that you found it useful, was that to sustain a transformation journey, shifting from a burning fear-based platform to a burning ambition, personal-based, is critical. This shift allows leaders to be calmer, more purposeful and responsive to challenges ahead. And it is key to establish personal reasons for change. The why is crucial to how leaders transform. So when you think about your career or business, what burning platforms might you be facing at the moment that hinder you from embracing your personal passions? What is it that underneath you are setting out to achieve for your career or business? What is your why? What are your core values? And does your current employer or do your staff align with them? Do they even know what they are? And where do we start? We all get entrenched in areas of burning platforms in our careers and businesses, whether they're self-made or imposed on us. You might be so inspired by working in the gaming industry, but you feel like there's so much you don't know and you don't know how to access it. You don't know where you actually stand or where you can go. You might have a shit manager who isn't self-aware or invested in your professional development at all. Your business culture might already be struggling and you don't know how to go about fixing it. Or your current managers or leaders might have been using the same management styles for all of their careers and they don't want to or think they need to change. You also might be so busy that the thought of undertaking any more feels overwhelming or too much. You also might think that because your business is financially successful, that your leadership capabilities don't need improving. And hopefully something here in what you've just seen and this talk so far has started to make you think about investing in leadership and the journey, or embracing it moving forward, and how you might start to do that and what the drivers are for that. So where do we start? Regardless as to what your current role is in your business, junior position, mid-level career, managerial, owner, CEO, wherever you sit, what I want you to think about is, say tomorrow you were asked to leave your current role completely and asked to consult the business instead, so become a consultant to the business. The business wants to fully review what's really going on within, from culture to productivity to communication, how decisions are made, where time and money gets lost, and how it can be improved. What would be the first thing you think? Fuck yeah, I cannot wait to get in there and tell them everything I think and I know. I have great feedback and I can make some really good suggestions. I need to start making a list. Is this a trap? I don't really trust this, and I very much doubt that I'm allowed to be totally honest and upfront without consequences. I also doubt anything will change anyway. Oh shit, I have no idea what to say or how to prove that I'm capable of this. Ugh, I just want to do my job and for others to do theirs. We don't need anything to change. I just want to keep the status quo. It suits me just fine. This is awesome. I need to find out more. When can we start sending out this all staff survey? Or as a business owner, I'd never let my staff do that. I'm sure there are many other variables in the responses, and there are some obviously more preferred responses above, but your true thoughts are actually an indication as to your current leadership mindset in your company and your current sense around your own development. The next metaphor clip I'm going to show you will start to highlight the key trajectory of truly embarking on a leadership transformation.
Imagine that you are the leader of an organisation and you are sitting in a workshop with your direct reports. There is a folder in front of you containing 360-degree leadership feedback that will reveal the impact you are having on them. This is represented visually in a model containing 3 colours, blue, red and green. What you hope to see is a sea of blue, but when you open the folder, you question whether the printer actually ran out of blue ink. It's all red and green. You've got 10 minutes on your own to digest this information before the question will be asked, who would like to share their data with the team? This is a rhetorical question because the answer is you. This is every leader's nightmare and one that became a reality for one of the leaders I've worked with. In spite of the horror story staring him in the face though, he followed through on his commitment to openly share it with the team and ask for them to hold him accountable to change, the very same people who provided the brutal feedback. This act of extreme humility was perceived as highly courageous. It became infectious as each team member decided to reveal their feedback and make a similar commitment to change. In that moment, a snowball of accountability began to roll. Each of the leaders in my original research faced a similar moment of truth, and their openness and humility had several consequences. Firstly, they created a safe and open environment that meant they and their teams accepted their data very quickly. Secondly, they received the benefit of the doubt whenever they strayed back into bad habits because their teams now trusted their intent. Thirdly, they enlisted their team members as supportive coaches. And finally, and most importantly, there was now an implicit expectation that all team members would equally commit to change. What leaders find is that in giving up their positional power, they unwittingly acquire an even stronger power with which to lead their organisation. And that power is commitment to shared standards for their leadership. In contrast to a traditional hierarchy, leaders create a snowball of mutual accountability with the leaders at the centre and their team members compacted around them. The snowball picks up momentum when the next layer of leaders is added to this cycle of accountability. The direct reports of the leader now find themselves sandwiched between their leader and their own direct reports. And the momentum of the snowball increases even further when accountability to shared leadership standards is embedded in the organisation's systems and structures. In several cases, this momentum is threatened by friction in the form of team members who do not commit to the leadership journey. This creates drag on the snowball and is particularly challenging when the friction comes from a team member that is really hitting the numbers. Each of the leaders in my study made difficult decisions to exit team members who failed to commit, and the results were surprising. Far from creating financial instability, each leader found that their snowball actually picked up pace when they shed the flakes that were creating friction. The message that shared leadership standards were now as important as financial performance proved a very powerful one. Some of the leaders not only faced friction, but also major obstructions that threatened to smash the snowball to pieces. One leader hit an obstruction when the company was acquired and they were forced into early retirement. Another was confronted by an international parent company who threatened to stop the leadership agenda altogether. Surprisingly though, in both instances, there was enough momentum for the snowballs to crash through the obstructions with the leadership agenda intact. All of this leads me to the understanding that accountability is dependent upon leader humility, while momentum is dependent upon getting a critical mass of leaders on the journey, exiting those who are not committed, and embedding the shared leadership standards in the organisation's systems and structures. At this point, the snowball is almost impossible to stop.
So after watching that clip, what are the key takeaways here? The key takeaways are that creating openness and humility, regardless of the status in your business, has a massive impact. Creating a safe and open environment builds trust in intent and allows everyone to accept feedback. Creating a consultancy or coaching approach within the business totally creates transformation. Giving up positional power actually gives much more power in leading teams and organizations. Creating shared standards is key, and it creates mutual accountability instead of hierarchy. Embed the accountability and shared leadership standards in systems and processes, and friction to change is inevitable. Those who won't come on the journey might not have a place. And values and principles are as important as financial performance. So these are not exhaustive. And as I've said, the approach and implementation in regards to leadership will be bespoke to where your business is currently and what it needs. What I really want to point out is, though, that leadership takes time and implementation will be bespoke to you and your business. There is no one size fits all. However, there are certain key things that you can replicate just in the right order and the right way for your business. As an individual in terms of leadership, I strongly advise to get yourself a coach or get yourself a mentor, even if it's not something that's invested in by your company. As a team leader, start to work on creating openness and transparency in your teams. Even if the business isn't going to have some massive overhaul of leadership transformation, you can actually start to work on your self-awareness and creating openness and humility within the teams that work and are accountable to you. And you don't have to know it all. As a CEO, you can get your own coach or a specialist consultant to work with you to do their job to assist you to do yours better. You can also consider hiring a people and culture specialist role to be that kind of CEO whisperer, as it was, and be that person who creates the leadership ethos throughout the company. Consider the structure of your business and how you can create a leadership team with the current heads that you have in it. I find that that's actually a really good start to learning about what it is you want to instill, what communication you want to flow through from the top down through the ranks, and how and what the leadership team could start to be accountable for. And challenge yourself. Would you undertake a 360-degree feedback survey with all of your employees? As a manager, would you be happy with getting brutal feedback from your staff? As a junior or mid-level, would you be happy with people giving you feedback? And shifting from a performance review perspective to objective key results, or OKRs, shifting something from really creating key results from the business from the top down and how that flows through from the bigger picture and the way in which the business is going down to the smallest parts of the puzzle that need doing in order to reach there. Taking performance away from the person and making it about key results of the company and people working towards those key results, as opposed to it being about a reflection of them. This is a huge thing in enabling people to thrive and know what they're working towards. Instilling objective key results, I've found, has been one of the biggest transformations that some businesses have made, which really helps to bring a leadership team together, which really helps to, it takes a lot of work because you have to really think, you have to change your mindset in order to think about what all the key results are from the top of the business right down to the bottom. But once you've done that and everybody knows how to review it and keep working towards it, then that actually can create transformation in itself. So I want to give a quick recap of the fundamentals of creating good leadership. The first one is openness. Openness to change, to be challenged, to hear things that might become uncomfortable, and to face things head on. Transparency. Creating the right level of transparency creates buy-in, responsibility, and drive for everybody to work towards the greater good. Now, transparency is an interesting one because there's some things that you don't want to divulge because you don't want to create fear. But it's about knowing how much and what the impact of the transparency you're giving. Trust. Create a safe environment for all types of feedback, which builds confidence to do amazing things. Respect. Believe that all of your employees have the answers, from the juniors through to the leaders. Everybody should be given the platform to be heard. Self-awareness. Now, I probably should have put this one at the top, but self-awareness is first and foremost about you needing to be open to being self-aware, and that's because that's the only way we develop as human beings, regardless of whether it's personally or professionally. And to promote self-awareness and personal growth to everybody who works with you and alongside you. Collaboration. Teams and individuals are most committed and driven when they feel like they're given the platform to add value. And considered. Consider with each move you make the impact and the communication that is required in the teams to keep everybody working towards the same goal without creating fear or friction. So my parting words, and I haven't really focused on my business consulting experience in this talk. I choose to keep things quite confidential when it comes to my consultancy, because actually consulting business owners and CEOs, even teams and individuals, is actually very personal. The personal and professional, you can't really separate one from the other. So I did choose to use a story that was mine, and I feel awkward about even sharing that. But again, everything's about humility and being humble, right? But I also want to really emphasize that I wasn't telling the story to make myself look better than my ex-business partner. Like I said, he was amazing at the innovation side of stuff, about getting things really set up. It was when the leadership part kicked in that we needed to have taken a step back, and we needed to know what we know now. And that's not everybody is a natural born leader. And it's so courageous when somebody can recognize that. And I work with startups now who get a lot of investment and they grow very, very quickly. And to have them come to the realization that this role, the CEO role, actually the head leadership role for them isn't for them anymore because the business has almost grown beyond them. That's so courageous. And so humbleness and really being able to be open and honest about, your own leadership capabilities and wanting to work on that is so poignant and powerful. So leadership is about getting the right people in the right place to instill the right values to make your business thrive. You can always embark on your leadership journey for yourself and your team, even if the business around you doesn't. You might not just stick around. And that also goes for businesses themselves. The business might embark on this leadership transformation, and some of your considered best people might rebel against it, but they might be left behind in the business. They might not have a place anymore. And I've also seen this in my consultancy as well. I've seen businesses, or I've been part of businesses, making a leadership transformation because they are moving to the next level. And some of their oldest employees who are kicking goals rebel against it, but that's because the business is moving beyond them. And actually, it's not a bad thing sometimes when those people move on, not only for the business, but for them in their journeys themselves. And I hope you realize that there's so much more I could have talked about today. So even though conceptually leadership is about a few certain concepts and creating a certain ethos in a business, actually the job I do is about going in, finding out about people's businesses and how they currently operate and communicate and what the blockages are, and then prescribing something that will help to unblock those processes moving forward. So again, it is individualistic in terms of what is going on in your business or in your career at this point in order to prescribe something that's moving forward. I just really appreciate you listening to this today. I really hope you took something away from it. And if you want any more information or want me to kind of go into things a little bit further, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.